to Your Confidence podcast. This week, we are bringing you a fun conversation that I had from the State of Women Conference, where I got to talk to Danielle Mckinley and Sophia Fifner, two powerhouse women that we know, all about how to work smarter in life, career, and motherhood. And what I love about this conversation is that they are sharing the real deal, practical tips and takeaways that you can implement right away. So I hope you give it a listen and I hope you enjoy, and we will talk to you guys next week. You guys, you're going to want to take all the notes right now. I wish I could be taking also all the notes. I'm going to take the mental notes. So our whole theme this day has been working smarter, not harder. And so we're going to come to you in this final hour. We're going to tie together all of the things that we talked about, work, career, life, motherhood. And we're going to give you the most practical tips that we have so that you can leave here and actually have the tools of how are you going to work smarter, not harder. Are we ready? Okay. All right. I'm excited. All right, girls, I want to talk about how we do this all. So you guys are mothers. You have high, active careers. You're ambitious, you want to do things. Let's talk life. Let's talk about how we simplify our daily living. Give me one system or routine that you've created at home that saves you energy every single week.
Yeah, so I am a big believer in outsourcing as much as I possibly can. I will outsource things rather than buy nice clothes or shoes or dinner, because I like to make sure that I can get the things done that need to get done. So some things that I've outsourced include laundry. There's a laundry service that pick up, I put all the clothes in a bag, they wash all of it, and it comes back to my doorstep, and it saves me an incredible amount of time and headache. I outsource cleaning, because I actually enjoy cleaning, but I do not like living with the three individuals and my dog who do not enjoy the cleaning. So that is outsourced as well. And then any opportunity to, oops, I think my mic's kind of going. Should I keep going? Oh, great, okay. Any opportunity to deliver groceries or pick up groceries or have somebody else make groceries, I do that without hesitation. And again, everyone has a budget that they're working with, right? I'm not a millionaire. I don't live in some massive mansion, but I make sacrifices. I would much rather outsource my groceries and cleaning and have a little bit more time to myself, or honestly, a little bit more time to work, than to not do those things and not have as much time to work. Or pay attention to my kids.
Oh, I love that. I echo all of that. And from a way, like a structural standpoint on how you can systematize that, I do what's called a State of the Union with my husband every single Sunday. And we sit down and we talk about what are we going to delegate? Who's going to do what? So I was just in Ohio last week. I live in Arizona. I'm back here again. I've got two kids. They play sports. We've got schedules. We've got laundry. We've got cleaning. We've got all that stuff, right? So we make it fun every Sunday, either in the morning over coffee or in the evening, we'll sit down and open up our schedule. So I run my household like a business. Right? So when we show up for work, we look at our schedule and we go, what time blocks do we have? What activities are we doing? Think of it the same way in your household. And then when you look at it, you're almost doing a mini time audit every Sunday. And you're going, what can I delegate? What am I going to take on? What is my husband going to take care of? And what roles are we going to play? And it sets us up for a really smooth, successful week. And we know, hey, we're going to do it again on Sunday. State of the Union.
I love that. Okay, so with the delegation, there's got to be some things that we're saying no to. So what's the process or system that you use that helps you say no? And then can you give us examples of literally how do you say no? Like if you're typing the email or telling someone face to face that you're declining something, do a mock say no.
Saying no is really hard. I wish I could sit up here and be like, oh, it's so easy to say no, and I'm really good at managing my time. It's something that I'm continuing to work on. In my current role, I lead a civic organization that intersects with the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and public sector. And every week we host conversations with about 100 to 200 people about issues that matter. And I get a lot of invitations to attend different meetings or different forums. Some of it's things that I need to know because it's a big issue happening in Central Ohio. Some of it's a fundraiser or something I'm personally passionate about. So I'm constantly bombarded with things that I should be doing. And I use the word should because I really appreciated the last section around the shoulds, right?
Mhm.
They're all shoulds. I should be at this thing because it seems like a really good space to meet other individuals or to continue my business priorities. I always think of things of, does this feel like a should, or is this something that I actually really need to attend? Is my presence necessary? That's the first step that I take. And then with saying no, I oftentimes, honestly, I block out everything on my calendar, from planning sessions to my kids' school stuff to my partner's work events. Everything is on my calendar, and I really just don't have the time. I don't have the time. So for me, when I say no thank you, it's, hey, thank you so much for this invitation. I really appreciate the opportunity to attend this fundraiser. Unfortunately, I have a calendar conflict at this time. And it doesn't matter if it's getting my nails done, it is a calendar conflict, and I just leave it at that. And also, for the causes that I care about, because I can't help but to say I'm really passionate about civic participation and engagement. For fundraisers, for example, if somebody invites me to a fundraiser and I really care about the cause, it's something that's aligned with me, I might say something like, hey, thank you so much for the invitation to attend this fundraiser. I can't participate, but I'd love to give a contribution instead. And every amount of contribution matters, whether you're giving $25 or $100, if it's aligned with your personal mission. I think it's meaningful, and that's one of the ways that I tell people, no thank you.
I love it. Okay, who here struggles to say no? I'm gonna put my hand real high because it's something I've had to work really hard on and I still struggle with it. Who here would say that they are, I like to call it a recovering people pleaser? Okay, good. This is gonna be great for you. Okay, so one of the things that you can start to do is start to listen to your body. Because like the women before us, Olivia and, your name is slipping me, Ashley. They did so good. Okay, your body knows, right? So you can start by just doing a little exercise where you put your hand on your heart and your stomach and close your eyes and you say, my name is Danielle Mckinley. My body's gonna say, well, yeah, it is, because that's my name, right? Or you say, my name is Benjamin Franklin. Well, that, you know what that no feels like, okay? And then the next thing you can do is you can run it through a question of an audit, which is, am I proving or am I pursuing? This is something I ask myself a lot because a lot of overachievers, people pleasers, we're proving something or we want validation back. So start to ask yourself, is this something I'm trying to prove? Or am I pursuing what's in alignment for me or what feels like something that I want to be doing, okay? And then we've heard this a few times today, but no is a complete sentence. Who feels like they have to over-explain and be like, I can't come because of blah, 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 blah. I want you to practice something this week. Say no to something and just say, thank you so much for thinking of me. I can't make this one. Keep me posted on the next one. You don't have to explain why you can't go. We all have busy schedules. And then start to see what that feels like in your body. And you're going to build the muscle of being able to say no more frequently.
Love that. Okay, how do you guys carve out personal time without guilt? And then what are some of the things that you do in that personal time to fill your cups?
Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. So I am a workaholic. I really enjoy working. And if you have an external role that requires you to connect with community members or constituents or clients, oftentimes it's really hard to balance all the things. I kind of hate saying the word balance, but just manage all of those relationships and take care of yourself at the same time. And I realized several years ago that I was doing a really bad job of taking care of myself. So much so that I was getting dizzy, I was getting headaches all the time. I was looking at how much I was working, and somehow I was working 80 hours a week, which again, totally fine, but I'm not taking care of my body. So I needed to adjust something to show up in a way that I felt I could be most effective. So I started with just sitting and getting my nails done, which I actually hate getting my nails done. I feel like it's the biggest waste of time, but it makes me sit still, and I like the end results. I just don't like sitting there. But I sat there once a quarter just to make sure that I could make space for staying still. And that's evolved into, I now have a 6-week process. I call it my walk in the woods, where literally every 6 to 8 weeks, I rent a cabin or I block off 24 to 48 hours. And not everybody wants to be in the woods. I'm not suggesting that all of a sudden you just block off your calendar and become like, I don't know, some warrior in the woods every single weekend. But for me, that is really, nurture is really grounding. Being connected to nature is really helpful. So every 6 to 8 weeks, I spend some time in the woods, and during that time, I do whatever the fuck I want to. So I will read a book, I will write, I will take a walk, I will take naps, I will go in a hot tub, I will do whatever my body feels like it needs to do. And what I realized in now practicing this for the last 2 years is that it's really restorative. I show up as a better partner, I show up as a better parent, I show up as a better employee, I show up as a better leader with my team because I have space to just let my body take the time it needs to restore and most importantly to rest. And I'll end here. For those of you who have who are really passionate about advocacy, who are really interested in supporting a cause that really matters to you. You're one of those individuals who are like, hey, I am all for environmental issues, or I'm all for reproductive justice. Whatever it is, that work is really hard. And if you do not take a break, you will not be ready to show up, because any advocacy that you do, whether it's for your kid, for yourself, for others, there are going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be highs and lows. And unless you are taking time to rest, it's going to be really hard to see in that entire experience of pushing advocacy issues, moving the needle forward.
So good. Okay, so everyone raised their hands when I asked if there's like overachievers and people pleasers, right? So when's the last time any of you went on like a girls' trip? Any hands? Oh, okay. Where are my girls at? Yes, okay. And you came back and did you feel like you could pour into your people? Okay, because you recharged, right? So guilt, right? That's the question, is like, what's the guilt? So guilt has this negative context to it, right? But what if you reframed what that guilty feeling meant and it was a caring tax? Revolutionary, right? So instead of being like, I feel so guilty about this, it's just a sign that you actually care. And then you go, but I also need to care about me. So what am I going to do? So I had a crazy experience in 2021. I woke up and had dislocated my shoulder in my sleep because I was so burnt out that I literally had stage 4 adrenal fatigue. So there's this thing, they call it a knock, a nudge, or a rhino. So knock is like those little nudges, like, hey, we need to slow down. We need to make some time for ourselves. And it's like the knock, knock, you're not listening. So something, crashes and burns. And then literally your body's like, no more. Okay, so I had to really work hard to find some systems. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm bred this way because our nervous system feels comfortable being overachievers, right? So we have to reframe that shit or else it's gonna keep going and we're gonna dislocate our shoulder in our sleep. So I started really small, and this is something that all of you could implement right away, which is having a you day. So tomorrow, I'm not flying home at 6 a.m. on the direct flight. I'm flying home at 5:55 because I'm having myself a spa day because I carved out my me time, right? So even if you just every single month I have one day that's for me, and I can decide what I want to do in it. If I want to do a little bit of work, that's fine, but it's the day to pour into me. So you got to figure out what works for you, but stop feeling guilty about it. It's just a sign that you care.
Those are so good. Okay, I want to shift a little bit to work. What's a tool or system that you use that helps you stay productive in your limited working hours?
Let's look up.
Oh, sure. Okay, so calendar is Bible, yeah? Who here has heard like time blocking and you're like, puke? Heard that a billion times. Okay, the reason we're like puke is because it feels restrictive, right? Oh, you got to do it this rigid way. And we all are different. We all show up as different humans. We have different likes and interests. So I make my calendar my Bible, but it is in flow. So I teach this thing called the 5 time zones. And on average, we're awake for 16 hours, right? So we get to split up our day into 5 zones. I do a personal zone, that's like my me time. That's me journaling, me having coffee, whatever I need and want to do so I can pour from a full cup. Then I have a defense time, because who here has to put out fires in their job, okay? So defense is like, I'm putting out fires, but I know I might not be able to get to all of them, but that's my put out fire, and that's the hat that I'm wearing. Then I have offense, which is I'm actively working to move the needle in my business, okay? Then you have creativity. So who has ever tried to like block, Whitney can attest to this, making content. And then you go to make the content and you're like, I don't have any ideas. all the time, right? Because you're trying to be rigid in doing that. So what I do with my creative block is I make notes. If I have downloads or ideas about being online or showing up on social media, I make a note in my note file on my phone. And then when creative time comes, I go look at that. So I'm not having to force myself to now think of ideas. I'm leveraging things that came to me freely while I was feeling in flow. And then finally, it's relationships and family. And then you get to be truly present. And the cool part about this is you can chop up those 5 zones however you need to each and every day. But if you hit all of those things, you're going to feel like you had a successful day and you know you've got the zones again tomorrow.
I love that idea. I'm a little overwhelmed. So if you are somebody who's like, that is awesome, but I'm a little overwhelmed, for me, just taking it one step down, my entire family has their own calendar, and that really helps me know where everyone is at whatever time, what activities they have going on. So we use Google in our household, and my daughter has it on her iPad, I have it on my phone, my husband has his calendar on his phone, and it just helps us give a 300-foot view of what's happening in our world so we can then work together to make sure that we have the coverage that we need. From a practical standpoint, I lead a really small nonprofit organization. It's me and 4 other individuals, and so we utilize Calendly as a way to easily schedule any of our appointments that we need to make with external community partners all the time. And then just to keep, from a work standpoint, to keep us all on the same page, I try to really focus on my role being strategic and visionary, so thinking about the future. I have my direct reports focusing on more tactical things that need to happen in the now, and my coordinator, she's the glue that keeps everything together. So her roles are really, really focused on that. So when we have a team meeting, I'm ensuring that as we're talking through our priorities for the week or for the month, that I'm focusing on big picture strategy. How are we moving those big rocks forward? My team, on our one-on-ones, I want to know about the smaller issues, but we try to keep our team meetings pretty consistent. I wish I could do a 5-step. That sounds awesome. But
I'll give it to you.
I'll try it. But on top of that, I also try to block off like 2 days a month just for planning, because I don't know how, I don't know, my 8-year-old schedule is a little overwhelming. So I try to make sure that I'm planning childcare coverage, things that I need to do for myself, things I need to do for my team, at least for 2 days, because I want to make sure that I can get everything done.
I love that. So we talked a little bit about boundaries earlier today and now. Can you guys think of a boundary that you were maybe nervous to set, but actually when you look back, it was pretty useful to you?
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, boundaries are really hard. So again, I'm not sure what everyone's professional roles are, whether you work at home or outside of your home, but being in a very visible public role, I feel like boundaries are oftentimes things that people like to cross when you are in a public position. Or if you work for a nonprofit organization and you have a board that you're responsible to. So for me, I try to make sure that my board, actually, I'm going to be really honest. I am the first Black woman to hold my position. I am the first immigrant to hold my position. I'm the first queer person to hold my position. And thank you. But I wish I could say that I have this magical way of just setting boundaries with my board. I don't even really give them an opportunity to dive into my personal life, because if I do, I worry that their perception of my work product will slightly shift. So my boundaries are, when we're talking about governance, when we're talking about the work that needs to happen in our community, I am all about business, period. And if it dives into something more personal, honestly, I don't give them that opportunity, because I don't feel like I have that luxury. Perhaps that's one way that I set a boundary, but it's not necessarily I don't feel like it's necessarily by choice. I think it's almost by societal requirement that I must do that to make sure that I can keep the work that we're doing moving forward.
So on that note, who here feels like they struggle with setting boundaries? All the hands up again? Double high? Okay. So boundaries are really setting expectations, right? So that's where it starts, is when you're looking at, gosh, I need more boundaries. Usually it's because you're out of alignment somewhere and you're not honoring something that is really important to you. And so that's what's making you feel like, oh, I don't like when that happens. We feel that in our body, right? So if you're wanting to set new boundaries, what I encourage you to do is start to go, where am I not honoring myself? And then how can I start to set different expectations around that? So if it's in business, you feel like, there's realtors in here, you're available all the time to your clients. That's because you're not telling them how to communicate with you from the beginning. So if you start to set the expectation around, hey, I work during these hours, this is when I'm available, and maybe you like to talk on the phone, maybe you like to text, you kind of explain that and ask that from your client in return. Okay, the other thing is about having tough conversations. Who doesn't like conflict? Yeah. Really hard for women too, right? To have tough conversations. So the sooner that you can start to have those tough conversations, you build this muscle where it almost becomes instinct after a while. But the only way to build the muscle is to start just like going to the gym. And going to the gym, if you haven't been for a while, it's really freaking hard, right? And then you're like, ooh, my pants fit a little better. So then you keep going and you keep building it. So what I would say with boundaries is start to think through one area where it keeps coming up for you and practice this week just starting really small. And it could be one client that you communicate with it. It could be your kids starting to set a boundary and then honoring them. But you have to identify what you want, and then you build your boundaries around that. So a lot of times we hear boundaries, but we don't always go, where do I need mine? And all of our boundaries look different. So start to identify what it is and then build around that.
That's great tips. How do you guys approach kind of networking or professional growth opportunities with being a mother? Most of those things tend to happen in the evenings, so do most of your children's activities. And so kind of what's the thought process when you are approached with something, and it can be both, like you want to be there or you don't want to be there, but kind of what's the analysis you go through to make that decision?
I think of my career first. I feel like that's probably controversial to say in a setting or a women's conference, but I always think about what's going to help me accomplish my goals professionally and doesn't need to get done. Because I care deeply about the work that we do at the Columbus Metropolitan Club. Now, how do I show up in all of these spaces when I choose to say yes to participating in an event that also conflicts with my daughter's dance schedule or my other daughter's swim lessons? Let me start here. I'm going to say that I am a very privileged individual, that my family and I have resources to make sure that our family can function and that I have the flexibility to do that. So I'm going to start there. I'll also share that culturally, my parents are from Jamaica, and as a culture, we have a very collective approach to childcare, and that I've always leaned on my parents to take my kids to their practices or their activities, and I don't feel guilty about it because that was modeled for me as a young person. I have 21 aunts and uncles. So when I say that it was a village surrounded, like I was with my aunts all the time, or with my uncles, or with my cousins, and they would show up to things. Sometimes my parents wouldn't be there, and I was totally fine with it. So culturally, I'm very comfortable asking and leaning on my family to help care for my kids. That would be really hard if you come from a more individualistic culture where the expectation is you're supposed to be at every single kid activity. And then on top of that, again, I do prioritize work. So yes, I want my kids to have a wonderful childhood where they get to experience different activities and meet new friends and have challenges, but I'm also not somebody who's going to be at every single one of their events because I don't really want to be at every single one of their events. I want to show them love. I want to cheer them on and care for them when it really matters, but I don't need to be at their practices. I don't need to be standing outside the door just waiting for them. So when I'm thinking about events, I think about how can does it prioritize, like, do I need to be there for work because it helps me drive something forward? I lean on my collective community to help care for my kids. And the word guilt has been brought up multiple times. I don't feel guilty about making sure that my kids have the resources that they need. And also, I think it's really important for them to see that parenting is not something that's just one singular person as their source for everything, that it is completely okay for a village to take care of them, whether that be their family members, their friends, their neighbors, etc. I don't think that a society can thrive well if we only focus on an individualistic approach to child rearing.
So good. Okay, I guess I love questions because I'm gonna ask you another one. So who wants to make their kids proud? Okay, who's proud of the work that they do? Okay, so modeling that for them and showing them through your work. And it's that reframe that I talked about earlier, right? It's let's reframe the guilt. And it means that you care, okay? And that's not a bad thing. And you can have both. It doesn't have to be one or the other, like Sophia said. Now, in terms of identifying where to place your bets, because time and energy is the only thing we can't make more of, right? And when we look at, like, comparison came up a lot today. And I talk about how we live in a world of endless comparison, right? Every time we open an app, someone's doing better than us. So step one is you got to identify what is your level of content. What does content look like to you? Because happiness, when we say we want to be more happy, we really just want to be more content. So first you got to go, what is that? What's my baseline for content, and build around it. So when it comes to the events, I do a couple of things. So I do the yes, no in my body that I talked to you about earlier. I also make sure, is it in alignment? Because sometimes we say yes to things just to say yes because we think we need to show face, or, oh my gosh, what will it look like if I'm not there? And that's not serving you, right? So audit the room. What are you going there for? Are you going there to make new connections? Are you going there to learn something? Are you going there to build new relationships, to expand what are you going there for? Does that room offer that? Okay, and then on the back end, is it going to fit into how can we delegate and take care of the kids? That's how I make my decisions, and how is it a hell yes for me, or is it a hell no in my body? And if it's a hell yes, then I'm there. I'm making it happen.
Thank you guys. One thing I love about our panels and about State of Women in general is that we share so many perspectives, and all of them are right for the person. You know, Whitney and I talk about this all the time. I plan the room parties for my kids, and I love it dearly. Whitney would not be caught dead doing that, right, in the classroom. And both are okay, and both are so good, you know? And so I just love that we are able to kind of just share different perspectives. And I hope you in the audience are hearing it and not saying, oh, I need to be like that or do that, but just saying, oh, okay, so that's the framework. How can I apply it to what feels good in my body and in my family? So I want to shift a little bit. You guys have both kind of mentioned partners. What role does having a supportive, positive partner play? And what are some communication tactics that you use to help communicate the things that you're trying to accomplish with your partner?
Sorry, I was smiling because I just thought it was really funny. I think having a supportive, if you are somebody who is cohabitating with someone, having their full support is so important to your well-being, and full support in how you're taking care of yourself financially, physically, emotionally, how you're showing up in the community, how you're showing up with your career, etc. I feel really fortunate that I have a partner who is just as motivated professionally as I am, and we have a lot of alignments in how we want to parent and how we want to prioritize the way that our lives work. With that being said, sometimes we do have a lot of differences. For example, my partner cares deeply about food, and I could give to, I don't care, I will eat cold chicken nuggets. It's not a priority for me. He likes to garden and make sure that we have whole, nutrient-dense meals to consume, and gets into all of the details of what we're supposed to make. So early on in our relationship, I was making food because of heteronormative practices around what gender roles should be, and I said, oh, well, I'll make the food. But that was a terrible decision. He started complaining about the food that I was making, and I was like, I don't even care about this stuff. I don't care. It's cooked, I think, and we can eat it, so it's fine. And so I share that example to say we had to have a direct conversation. Communication is really important. We decided, hey, you care about food deeply. How about you manage all of the food in our house? Because you care about the quality of it, the types of produce that that I have delivered at our home that you don't necessarily like because you can't pick it yourself. You care about all those details, so you should manage the food in our household. Having frank conversations like that have been really helpful for our relationship because it creates very clear roles and divisions of labor that helps our lives move a little bit faster. I care deeply about laundry. I am somebody who, while I will send out my laundry, I have very specific instructions on how to separate clothing, how to take care of every single piece. And he's like, I throw everything into the washing machine all at once. So in that example, again, we had a conversation and I'm responsible for giving very clear instructions on how to manage laundry and put it away and fold it. Now, I'm giving very domestic examples. Let me give you an example from a work standpoint. My husband is an attorney, and sometimes he has really important, like, a brief that he has to submit for the Supreme Court, or I don't know, whatever attorneys do. And for us, it's just, again, having conversations about what our needs are early on in the week. We'll walk through, similar to the example that you shared, what's going on in your week what's going on in your week? Do I have an event that conflicts with a huge priority that he needs to get done? And if so, what support can we bring in from our village to make sure that we have the coverage that we need? Communication is everything.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you her closet's color coordinated. Is it?
Oh yeah, rainbow.
Mhm. Love it. I need a picture. Yeah. Okay. So supportive partner. It makes all the difference if you think about it. If you probably know someone who has a supportive partner and you know someone who doesn't, and you see the difference in what that looks like. And it's all about managing expectations. It's the same as any other area in your life. And so when you can manage the expectations, you both feel fulfilled, you feel loved, you feel supported. And so I kind of shared with you how we do that with my husband with our State of the Union. But man, when he doesn't load the dishwasher, it just really pisses me the fuck off. So we have these problems, these little communications, and we butt heads, but then we come back to each other because ultimately we're managing expectations and we're feeling supported. Now, one thing that I'll share that's a little bit, maybe a little bit of a pivot, but has worked really well with developing the communication is every single night, and this helps with the guilt stuff we've talked about. Every night we do, the four of us, we call ourselves the Fab Four. I have a boy and a girl, and we sit around and we do our yay, our nay, one thing we did that was a random act of kindness, and what we're grateful for. And here's what that does, is it allows you to model and even talk about hard things that happened in your day and share that with your kids. And then they start to ask really cool questions. Well, Mom, what did you do with that? Well, how should I respond? Or they'll tell you something else that happened in their day. And it gives you an opportunity to establish that communication and teach your kids that, hey, it's wide open and Mom and Dad share it too.
Thank you, guys. What questions do you guys have? Yes.
So, some people in the audience, kids are grown and gone, or no children, no partner. How would you structure, these models in a home? Because a lot of people think if your kids are grown and gone, you have more time, but I found that not to be the case at all. And there's this misconception, like, if you're single, you have more time. If your kids are grown and gone, you have more time. So just give me a little bit of talk track on what that looks like. I know obviously it's hard because you're not in that space right now, but I'm sure you work with people who are. So how can we take this advice into that? Because we can't blame kids' sports on not being able to attend, and we can't, things like that. So
yeah.
So I'm curious to see what you have to say. I think that your model, the buckets of how you're approaching life, make a lot of sense. And for me, I started to develop a rhythm of aligning my actions with my values. So at the very beginning of the year, I think about all of my values, and not the values I should have, like family should. More so like compassion. That's definitely a value of mine. And then everything that I do, I base it off of those values. From a work standpoint, my personal life, my religion, my spirituality, and I check in with those values every 6 to 8 weeks. So for an individual, if I was living by myself and I didn't have kids, I think I would still prioritize my time in correlation with my values. Am I making time for example, I'm a Quaker. So am I making time for exploring my spirituality? That would be really important to me, and I'd probably block it off on my calendar. It's blocked off my calendar now, but I'd still block it off if I was single and make sure that I had time to contribute energy towards that because it's really important to me.
I love that. So, Cindy, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to give you some tough love here. Where do you feel like you're struggling with it the most?
Oh, I definitely have a hard time saying no.
Okay.
Yeah. I overcommit to a lot of things. I'm doing better.
Oh, look at the support group. I love this. Friends are the best. Okay.
Yeah, but honestly, I do think, I have the false perception of when your kids are grown and gone that you're going to have this miraculous time that's going to show up on your calendar, you're gonna have more time, and that's just not reality.
So expectations, right? So you set an expectation for yourself that, okay, kids are grown and gone. I am an empty nester, and so now I should have all of this time, right? So it comes back to managing expectations. So that's an expectation that no one else put on you. It's one that you put on yourself, right? And so now it's just deciding, hey, what's not working for me in the way that I'm running my day-to-day that's causing me to feel like I have so much less time than everyone else? Because ultimately, we all have 24 hours in a day, right? I wish we could make more, but dang it, we can't. So it's just deciding what works for me and then exploring it. So maybe it's the 5 time zones. Maybe it is something more similar to what Sophia described, and identifying what's going to work the best for you and feel the best, because we all operate differently. What I like about the 5 time zones is that you're able to make it really fluid, and you can choose, you could do just 3 of the zones in one day. You don't always have to hit all 5 zones, but when you think about the zones, they capture everything that we want in the human experience, right? So I would encourage you to do a time audit and figure out, where am I spending my time? Where do I have energy leaks that I can delete or automate or delegate? And then restructure it based on that. So do a 7-day time audit where you literally track everything you're doing for 7 days and then go through and rate it. Circle, rate, delete, automate. What you're gonna find probably is you're like, well, I didn't even know I do this all the time and it's a complete waste of my time. Well, good, delete it, cross it out. That's what I would start with, yeah.
What other questions?
Don't be scared, hot seat coaching.
So, like, I'm single, I don't have kids, and so most of the people I work with are, 10, 15 years older than me, and so it could be easy to assume the opposite, kind of where you are. Oh, she has the time, she doesn't have any, anyone to worry about, and, but I love what you said with, oh, I have a calendar conflict. Okay, and then I've learned to, be confident about it, and I've built that trust within myself too. Where at first I would be like, oh, they're gonna think bad of me, or they're gonna think I'm lazy or not doing enough, or but then I'm just like building that confidence within myself where I'm like, I do have that. I have that nail appointment. That's okay. I'm gonna show up to all my other meetings and my nails are gonna look good. It's fine. But I don't know. I liked that comment about the just sticking to the calendar and kind of not having to over-explain. But I definitely feel that. Even though I'm on the other end of it, I fully feel that.
Yes, I love that. I think you get to set the tone. Right? Like, my time is just as valuable as yours, whether or not I'm on the soccer sideline or in the nail salon or sleeping in my bed. Right? What I'm doing outside of work hours is just as important, and it's my time. And I think you, through your communication to all of us, set that tone. So I think that's a really great call out.
I want to add something to it. Has anyone in here ever read The Untethered Soul? Okay, Hannah has. Isn't it so good? Okay, I read this book once a year. So jot that down, Untethered Soul. So in the first part of the book, it starts to get into your inner voice. And that's what you were just talking about and describing, like the assumptions that we make and where our inner voice really sabotages us. So in the book, it teaches you to make that inner voice a person, like literally like Sophia sitting next to me on the couch, and then go, would you listen to that person or be friends with that person? Or would you say, hey, there's the door, you're an asshole, right? Because that's what we do inside of our head. So if you feel like that's happening for you, start to go at it from take a moment and go, whoa, that was a really mean thing I just said to myself. Would I accept that from someone else? And if the answer is no, you can start to retrain that inner voice, because we have 16,000 thoughts a day, or don't quote me on it, something close to that. And so we got to start to filter it. And then when you couple that with assumptions, like for you, you're assuming that your boss is expecting more of you because you don't have kids, which isn't fair, but you also don't know if that's what's happening, right? So we get to start to challenge that. Untethered Soul, so good.
Yes. I have a question. Yeah. So we have all these tools and these mantras and books and podcasts and all the things that we're jotting down, and everything is great. What is a tool you pull out to get your shit back together when you have a day where it crashes and you don't want to play anymore? Because everybody has a day where they don't want to play.
Yeah.
And when we're on the edge of burnout, me personally, I feel like if I catch myself saying I don't want to play real estate today, something's wrong, because I have a really great job. My job is to hang out with friends. Come on. But I don't have a lot of tools in my kit
Yeah.
I've got tools for time blocking, I've got tools for motherhood, like all the things my therapist tells me, that's great. What about when like, it just feels like a pile of,
Mhm.
so what do you do when you
Yeah.
can't get out of your sweatpants and scratch out a single ticket?
Mhm. So good. I love this.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, I'm a survivor of sexual assault, and so I've spent probably the last, well, not probably, I've spent the last 20 years, an incredible amount of therapy. And I'm also someone who deeply, I love to study trauma therapy, healing journeys. I love to study advocacy and how people respond to advocacy, and that feeling of burnout, of hopelessness, of I'm just like totally over it. I think it can happen in a variety of settings. For example, it could be connected to work. It could be connected to something that happens on the news. You're like, what in the world is going on with the universe and how people are showing up and treating one another? And I'm over it. I felt that way before, and for me, what I've learned is that it is okay to just check out for a little bit. If you need the full week, if you have the luxury and the privilege of taking a week, take a week. If you need to just book a massage at the salon or go on a walk at your favorite park, I think the biggest thing that I've had to learn is that it is okay to just check out, like to not do anything, to not feel guilty about it, not feel like you need to have like some special way to get out of it. Just experience your emotions, whatever you're feeling, and like know that that's part of the process of healing and of restoring your body to get to whatever your next step is. I don't know if there's necessarily a like magic wand. I wish that there was a magic wand. I wish that there was like a magic pill that like, take this pill, you won't feel that way anymore. But sometimes it just kind of sucks. That's probably not incredibly optimistic, but that is what I have learned after 20 years of therapy. Hopefully my therapist is happy.
Okay, so I echo this because it's not like I could be like, hey, do the 5 time zones, or get a sauna and make your checklists and systematize your day, right? You have to figure out what feels right for you. And sometimes it's okay to say, fuck it, get in bed and pull up the covers and just go to sleep and go tomorrow is a new day. Sometimes that's what it takes, right? So I think instead of attaching to like, oh my gosh, I need a system for this, I don't have anything, rather than do that, go, what do I need to feel and express? Because as women, we stuff so much shit down. I'm going to give you another book. Have you ever read The Body Keeps Score? Yes. Okay. Our body really does. And so also you can start to look at, like, my dad is he was an alcoholic, undiagnosed bipolar disorder. I grew up in a house of chaos. And he would always sabotage big events, graduations, trips, things like that. And I had this crazy anxiety around packing, like packing for a trip. And it didn't click for me until I'm going to be 39 next week. It didn't click for me until I was 38 this year, that I was like, holy shit. The reason why this is so hard for me is because my body is waiting for the other shoe to drop. So sometimes it's just looking in and going, hey, where did this come from? And having a little chat with yourself, and then figuring out what feels good in your body. And sometimes it's getting in bed and going back to sleep, right? So don't attach so much to, I need the thing for me. Be more curious about discovering what works for you, and know that it doesn't always have to be the same thing. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask the final question, and then we'll have Whitney and Kim come up and help wrap this up. What is one thing you guys wish you had learned sooner, whether it's about motherhood, career, the balance word we don't like? You could go back and like, ooh, what is one thing that probably would have been useful to know before I actually learned it?
So if you would have met me in my early 20s, I had an Excel document called my life plan, where I literally mapped out every single professional and personal accomplishment I wanted to make. When I say every single professional and personal accomplishment, I mapped out when I wanted to get married, when I wanted to have kids, when I wanted to go on a trip to London and Paris, what job I wanted to have, how much I wanted to make, what board I wanted to serve on. Literally for like a decade, I lived my life based off of this master Excel document. And then things shifted. And I realized that while I love planning, because I'm a very spiritual person, I like to plan out God's plans. that perhaps a better way of living is not necessarily living by an Excel document, that it is okay for spontaneous things to happen. And sometimes that the universe creates the most overwhelming, wonderful experiences of joy when they're unplanned. So that is one thing that I wish that I would have known when I was 21, developing an Excel document called my life. It's literally called life planning document. I wish that I would have known that then.
Are you a Virgo?
I'm a Capricorn.
Yep, that was like a yes.
Definitely type A. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All of us here? Okay. There's so much when you look back. I love the reflection of like, if you could have coffee with your younger self, what would you tell her? Right? One thing that really jumped out at me when Stephanie asked the question, and there's so many things that I would do different, is I think hindsight is always 20/20. But the thing that really jumped out at me is something I only discovered 2 years ago, and that was my money story. And when I decided what about money, when I made a decision about it, how it plays part in the way that we lead, the way that we spend, the way that we love and show love and receive love, and how impactful and connected it is to so many aspects of your life. So if someone would have taught me that, I would probably have a lot different career journey than what I have sitting here on this couch today. So for me, it's been absolutely profound to understand where my story came from, how it drives the way that I show up in the world and the work that I do. So if any of you have not discovered your money story, I would really start to look into that, because it really affects the way that you show up in so many aspects of life.
Can I have you okay, so I saw you last week at the other event.
Uh-huh.
Can you elaborate really briefly on your money story and that seven-figure your story? Can you tell that? Do you mind?
Sure. So here's what happened. The long story long is that I built and sold a software company. It was a bootstrapped company. We had a 9-figure exit in 2022. And when the exit happened, you would think like, holy shit, that's a huge accomplishment. It felt like nothing for me. And I was like, this is not okay. Like, why doesn't this feel like anything? So I went on this crazy journey of therapy and self-discovery to understand where it came from. And I told you a little bit about my dad earlier. So when I was 8 years old, I went to my mom after they had a particularly rough fight, and I asked her to leave my dad. And her response was, honey, I would if I could, but I can't afford to care for you kids on my own. And so in that instant, I made a decision about money that it equaled survival. It equaled the opportunity to stay or to go. It was safety. So what it did is it made me an overachiever. And I was like, I'm always going to have the money and it's going to be fine. I'm going to have the choices. But I wasn't doing work that was setting my soul on fire, right? I was chasing something and doing it out of that story. And that's why it felt empty. But it did lead me to the work that I now do. So that's a little bit of the discovery. And if you're like, where did it come from? Think about from the ages of 0 to 7, your subconscious is wide open. You download information like facts, what people say, what you observe, and think about what is something you always say, that inner voice, when you spend or when you look at your bank account. What comes up for you? What decision did you make? What statement do you keep hearing? That's a sign into where your money story is. Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much. How about a round of applause for our panelists?